Hello, Matt's here for sonicstate, and today we are looking at this, which is the MD900 Extended Virtual Analogue Synthesizer by Mayer EMI. This is their flagship unit. I would say it's much more than just a synthesizer. This is actually 4-part multi-timbral. There's 16 voices shared across those 4 parts. Each part has their own oscillators, filters, modulation capabilities, effects as well. The whole audio path is stereo from start to finish, and there's also the ability to load in your own samples for one-shot playback, so you can play drum sequences from this and also use a kind of Ableton Live kind of clip launching capabilities as well. It's a very, very comprehensive unit. We're not going to get into everything today because there's a lot to cover. It's beautifully made. You've got this aluminium side paneling going on. You've got this walnut wood as well, and the whole unit actually feels really, really well made. You've also got this touch screen as well, which allows you to navigate around the whole of the unit really, really easily. So you could jump into your filter section here, for example, or you can jump into some of the envelope generation going on, or you might want to jump into your LFOs. It's really, really, really quick to jump around and have a look at what's going on. Just looking at the front panel here, we've got a main level output here, glide that you can add, headphone output, detune that you can apply to the unison modes. You can have this running in mono, poly, 3 different unison modes. You've got your oscillator 1, oscillator 2. You've got a noise kind of oscillator. You've got a shaper, which is kind of like a distortion. Your mixer for blending oscillator 1, 2, and the noise. You've then got filter A and B, and then you've got 3 LFOs over here as well. Some of these sections you might be able to see has got these small little windows here, so you can actually see a little bit more information straight from the front panel. I kind of like this because there's not a lot of menu diving to do really. You can get around very, very quickly. You do have your hard faders here for your filter and for your amp, and also for any other kind of modulation envelope generators there as well. Round the back we have got the 12-volt power supply with on-off switch. We've got 3 USB 2 host. You can use those as well to power keyboards or any other peripherals that you're interfacing with this. Sustain pedal, expression pedal, your MIDI in, out and through on DIN, and then you have an in stereo jack, and then you've got your out left and right. This jack here actually will give you a stereo output. This one will just give you a mono if you want it, and then you've got your headphones. What's interesting about this is currently, according to the firmware that I'm using anyway, everything does come out of the left and right. You can't send things out of individual, say, I don't know, your kick drum out of your headphones and your main bass line out of this one, and then you send other things out of this one. That would be really cool. At the minute you have to mix everything internally, essentially in stereo, and it comes out of the left and right. But who knows, maybe that will change in future. You also get these really cool little legs here that pop out, which allow you to stand it up on the table nicely. And overall, it's just really well built. It's a very well built, solid unit. Okay, so let's have a little play with it and have a listen, see what this thing can do. I've just got a default patch here at the moment, and just got oscillator 1 going. It's a really good range in these oscillators. They sound really, really juicy. I don't know what they've done, but even just this saw, if you're listening to that on a big sound system or even on headphones like I am now, you can just hear how much there is going on there. It's really great. We also have a bit more complex ones with some pulse width going on here. And this kind of saw with that going on. Some more pulse width. What else have we got? Lovely, and all of this of course can be modulated. So if we jump into our matrix where basically we set up our modulation, there are 24 different slots for sources and destinations. So if we take something like perhaps LFO1 and assign it to that shape, and we'll just go to oscillator 1 shape, turn up the amount that you want. You can have this running in bipolar or unipolar as well. And jump over to LFO1, and you'll notice actually I'm using these little buttons that they've put on the unit as well. So as well as the ability to jump around here and just go to LFO1 or LFO2 or LFO3, you can actually use these buttons here as well to jump around. So what have we got going on here? We've got ramp, we've got random, we've got lots of different LFO shapes going on here. Let's just leave it on sine wave. Let's just sync it to the BPM and just slow it down a little bit as well. And that is now changing the shape, that kind of pulse width for us. I've got that running in poly as well. Let's go up an octave. You can actually change the octave on here as well. This is pretty handy. There's a little red light as you turn it. It will actually tell you when you get to divisions of your octaves. So -24, -12, back to the middle, +12. Just really handy visualizations there. Okay, let's just play around with the amp shape here a little bit as well. Maybe we'll just make it fade in a little bit, add some release there. Just turn down the depth of that LFO. Okay, let's add some filtering onto this. At the moment, I don't think we've got any filtering. No, as we see, as we jump over to filter A, there's lots of different types of filters. You've got these kind of low pass, 24 dB. You've got Moog ladder filters, high pass filters to play around with. You've got some band pass as well, these kind of Korg ones. So let's just have a little play around with this. Again, we get a really nice visual on screen. Resonance to that. And again, if we want to modulate this, easy to do, just jump over to the matrix. This time, let's take LFO2 and let's apply that to our filter. There we go. And again, we'll just turn it up, just go over to LFO2 here, and actually I'm going to draw my own LFO. You can actually use this touchpad, take advantage of this and actually draw your own LFO shape here. Let me just sync that again to the BPM and let's just slow it down. At the minute it's stepped, we can smooth that out. There we go. And that's modulating our filter. We can just jump back also to one of the presets. And maybe we don't want to work it in bipolar here, so let's just change that just so it's working now unipolar, and you'll see that indicated by these arrows here. There we go, so we've got a bit more subtle movement going on now. Great. How about some effects on this as well? And bear in mind, we're only just listening to oscillator 1 at the minute. We've got oscillator 2, we've got a noise oscillator as well that we can add into there. We have 10 different slots here for effects that we can add in. Let's have a look. We've got some delays, we've got some EQ, we have more filtering, a tube amp, reverb. Yeah, we'll go with some reverb. There's even some dynamics in there that you can play around with, and some phasing. Going back to the reverb, let's go for a large hall, turn up the wet, turn down the dry a little bit, something like that, and turn it on. Okay, let's have a listen to something on oscillator 2. So I'll just turn down oscillator 1 here. Oscillator 2's up, jump over to oscillator 2. And how about we load up our wavetable here instead? So our oscillator 2 is also running through the same filter, I believe, because if we jump over to our voice and go to our mixer, we can actually see that oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 are going through filter A. So if I actually want to send oscillator 2 through its own filter here, I can just select which one that goes to. So now it's going through filter B, which isn't on at the moment. We do have the reverb on there still, because we're still on the same part, so they share that. And let's bring back in the other oscillator. Maybe a little bit of filtering on our second oscillator here, which is going through filter B. Getting a nice mix of the two. Maybe just take some of that attack off the first oscillator's envelope so it fades in as well. So I just jumped over to the amplifier B. Maybe we'll go an octave up for oscillator 2 as well. Okay, yeah, I really like the sound of this. The effects sound really, really nice. The envelopes, the modulation is very fast to get around, very, very visual as well. And more importantly, the sound is just kind of second to none. I think they've done a really great job of whatever they're doing with this in order to get this variety of sounds. The filtering as well, you know, for this being digital, I think this stands up very, very, very well. Let's have a little look at some of the other capabilities in here. As I mentioned, we've got the ability to play back kind of sequences and things. Jumping over to this screen here, we've got this clip launching, which, as I mentioned, is not too dissimilar to what you see in things like Ableton or Bitwig. And if we just play one of our sequences here, so we'll just play 1A, which is now playing, and it's just playing a static note. Now if we go into this and open it up, we can change the length of steps. We can change if it goes pitch up, pitch down. We can also clock divide if we want to. There's our BPM, 120. Let's go into it a little bit more. So if I was to play a chord, something like this, I'm playing 3 notes now. We can say at each step it will play a different key that I've got held down. Let's just speed that up a little bit. There we go. If we go over to mode, we can play around with how it holds onto those different notes. We can also change the semitones. We can also change the octaves of different notes like that. We can also change the velocity of some of those as well. If you've got the velocities on there, let's just add some more filtering. So it's very quick to build up something like this using this this clip launching, if you like. So yeah, let's open that again. We could make the steps longer if we wanted to as well. Let's add some effects onto that one. Okay, let's maybe go for some stereo delay, and we've got ping pong. Yeah, let's go for some ping pong and turn down the dry a little bit. You do have to watch when you're using a digital system like this, the headroom in there. So just make sure your volume's not too loud. Brilliant. Let's bring in oscillator 2 in there into the mix as well. Let's choose a different waveform in here. Nice. Both oscillators are going through the same filter. So it's just really cool that you can build up sequences in here, save it to the machine. I believe you can also import your own MIDI into here if you wanted to as well. Now, in addition to this, we can also sequence some drums, and there's some presets in here that comes with it for different kits, also individual one-shots like crashes, toms, hats, kits. So let's load up a techno kit, and let's have that one in there. And if we go over to here to our grid, and we can put in our kick drums here and snares and so on and so forth. Go to our clips and let's play that. Which you will see is playing there. Just turn off the delay. Let's change the delay to, again, some reverb. Let's go with a tiny room this time and turn that on. Maybe go a little bit faster in our sequence. And go back to the drums and maybe put some hats in here. and this is just part A we're listening to at the minute. We haven't gone into part B, C or D. So if we do that, let's jump over to part B and let's load up a preset from here, maybe some kind of pads or something. Let's go with this R pad, which is now loaded up. So this R pad looks like we've got this kind of sine wave, another one. Let's put some filtering on that, turn down the res a bit. And let's go to our second part. I've just changed the MIDI channel, so I'm now on part B. It's nice. In fact, if we go over here to part B and we start part B playing a clip, it's now going to play there we go. So the clip in part B is playing part B, that sort of pad you're hearing. Part A is playing the kind of bass line for us. Let's open up this one that's playing part B, and because I was playing a chord, if we change that to chord, it's now playing all those notes rather than it just playing the root note. Jumping back to part A. Part B. Just turn that oscillator down a little bit. And we can mute part A, bring it back in, mute part B. So you've got a kind of little screen here to kind of mute different sections. You can also, you've got a little mixer here as well, so you can play around with that. Just jumping back to our touchscreen here, you'll be able to see as well the voice allocation, which is really useful. So you can see how many voices you're using. And remember, there's 16 voices that are shared across the 4 parts in this as well. Sounds absolutely great. The clip launching is very, very powerful. As you can see, coming up with all this kind of arpeggiation and that kind of thing. Let's have a little bit more of a play with this. So we've got oscillator 1 here, which is this wavetable. Sounds great. This is just being played from a clip here on part A, by the way. Oscillator 2, some trusty simple PWM algorithm there, using that square wave. Let's mix those together. Sounds great. Now, I did mention that there is the ability to add distortion to this. So we've got this kind of juicy big bass line going on at the minute. Let's go over to the shaper and we can drop this in as an insert either on oscillator 1, oscillator 2 or over the whole mix. You've then got the kind of pre-gain, so you can add more distortion to that, and the curve, and also different types of distortions as well. And you can can just get really mean. If we just change that type to like a hard. And I think this does this exceptionally well, given that this is, you know, completely digital. The other thing you can do for some extra girth is charge the input of the filter. And this is something I like to do when I'm building patches in using a modular, is play around the gain structure, and in particular gaining the signal going into a filter. It's getting really juicy right now. And of course, going back to this matrix, let's modulate the using maybe LFO, yeah, let's use LFO1 again, and let's take that to the shape of oscillator 1. Let's go to LFO1 here, just put it in sync with the BPM. That's just going to move through the waveform for us. Just massive. Maybe pop some effects on that. Let's go stereo delay. Just going to turn down the input a little bit. You've got to watch that again with the headroom on digital synths. Now, I haven't found a way to synchronize the delay to the clock that you're using, and there doesn't seem to be any tap. I wonder if that's something that they can put in the future, where you could just tap that delay in. Go to our drums, let's load up this. Just turn down the synth parts. We do have a volume control for the drums here, which is maxed out at 100 there. So you do need to kind of watch your levels. So let's have a look at the kind of sample playback in this. As I mentioned, you can play back one-shots within this. You can't add effects to them. You can sequence them. You can load in your own samples into this. It comes jam-packed with a load straight from the factory as well. Let's have a look how this works a little bit. I'm just on part A, got drums here, I've got a little sequence, hit play on that. Let's go into the clip itself, and you can see what I've programmed into that. And if we go over to our presets, we can actually change that. Try out some different ones here. And let's say we like that, but we want to change the kick. We can go to our kick and try different. Sample out. Maybe we prefer that one. Maybe the closed tap, we want to change that to something like that. So it's very easy just to build up your own drum sounds. As I say, this is pretty much all you can do with this. You can't then run these through all the filters or the distortion or anything like that. You can change the pitch of them though, so we can tune our individual one-shots. You can also change the level as well. So if your kick's a bit loud or whatever, closed hat, let's pitch that up a little bit. You can also just play around with the way that they fade and also how long they last. So if you want some very kind of short, kind of glitchy sounds, that is totally achievable. There is a sidechain facility in here though, which is pretty cool. So you can sidechain that as well. It would be cool to see this function developed in future if possible, but first and foremost, this is, I guess, a 4-part synthesizer. The drum sequencing and programming, it doesn't seem like an afterthought as such. It's just that you would have to do a lot of preparation of your samples in a box before you import them in. As I say, you can't run them through all the effects in that. Maybe that's something that's going to come in future, I don't know. I'd certainly welcome it. But I still think it's a great function of this device. If you wanted to go out and play live, for example, you've got all this ability to do all of this sequencing, all of the drum programming, all in one unit basically, which I think is pretty good. Okay, let's have a look at some other sounds. We've got bass going on here. This looks to me just like Sawtooth on oscillator 1. Let's just turn that down a second, go over to oscillator 2, and we've got some really interesting algorithms here. I like this VA sweep. Let's turn that up. The thing about this is that you can kind of morph from this sine wave rather, and change the harmonic content. Really nice. Nice touch. Let's combine those two together. Nice. Quite beefy sounding. Just jump over the filter, turn up that envelope amount, just make this quite short. It's got a bit of bite. Great. Let's put an effect on here. Maybe we'll let's try out this tube amp actually. Just go for drive all the way up. Just going to adjust the output there. Might get a bit pokey. Change the low frequency that it's boosting, and let's reduce some of the high frequency. Craft our sound like that. I mean, that is just fully wedged on there. If I turn it off, we're back there. I'll just make that volume back up. And as I mentioned before, you could use the shaper actually to add some more distortion on there. Maybe let's try the hard distortion. Put this over the main mix. I think I prefer the sound of that. Yeah, I must admit, I do like the sound of what the shaper does as opposed to the tube effects, but that's just my preference. As I mentioned, in addition to the two regular oscillators, you also have what they call a noise oscillator, which is an oscillator that is built upon samples, basically. Some of these are multi-samples, some of them are not. This one's called now strings. And these run through the same filters, envelopes if you want to. And they sound lovely when you mix them in with the regular oscillators. We've just got a little bit of reverb on there, take that off. Just take that oscillator up an octave. There we go. That reverb back on. Let's see with oscillator 2, maybe we can have something different on oscillator 2. This kind of distorted wavetable. Not sure what this will sound like. Let's blend this in. Quite nice adding that low end for us. Scan through that. Sounds really nice. Let's take that up an octave. Maybe we'll just try a little bit of shaping on that one as well. So let's put that on the whole mix a little bit. We don't want to go too crazy, but just add a little bit. It's great. Let's go into the reverb here a little bit. We've got this bright club that we're using. Let's change the pre-delay a little bit and play around with some of these parameters. Let's see how big we can go. You have to be careful again because you can overload this. Now, just in case you're interested, the effects, I believe that they come after the filter. The shaper definitely comes before the filter. You can see that there. But I think, to my ears, it sounds like the effects come after the filter. I could be wrong. Let's just take those down a little bit. Let's go back to our noise. So we're just listening to the noise one now. And let's load up something else. Let's load up this one called Dark Light. And let's try Spacey R or R pad, some R's. It's quite nice. Just going to take that gain down a little bit there. running through this filter. Now with regards to the noise, there's not a lot you can do. You can change the pitch and the way it's triggered as well, but that's pretty much it at the moment. If we go over to our matrix here and just see if there's a destination there for the noise. I'm not sure there is. There's LFOs, oscillators, and shaper. Now there are some grayed out destinations which are coming, I believe, in future firmware updates, and these are the ability to change the attack, decay portions of the filters and the amplifiers as well, which will be really cool because I think you get some really interesting things going on that way. But I can't see anything in here at the moment in terms of playing around with that noise oscillator, unless I have missed it. Having said that, these are just lovely to sit underneath and combine with your regular oscillator. So there we are. I mean, we've just touched the surface of what this can do. This is very in-depth. This is a very comprehensive unit. As I say, it's much more than a synthesizer. There's 4 parts you've got in there. There's all the effects you've got in there. There's the fact that the audio path is stereo from start to finish. You've got your drums, you've got your sample playback, you've got all those really juicy and well-crafted oscillators that you've got in there. Yes, it might have been nice to have seen a few more outputs on this, but you can do quite a lot of mixing in the box between the different parts, and indeed the drums, including the sidechain in there. But perhaps that's maybe something that people would like to see. It's a great form factor, you know, it pretty much fits under your arm, and this is a powerhouse machine at the end of the day. It's not cheap. It retails at about £3,000, which is a chunk. But if you think about what you're getting for your money, I think that sits about right with me. In addition, I should also mention that you can also plug in one of those cheap launch pads, which you can use for the clip launching if you don't want to use the touch screen anyway. The navigation is just beautiful. I must admit, this is I connected with this very, very quickly just because of the way that you can navigate, and I could sculpt the sound very, very quickly, which is exactly what you want to do. I think the balance between being able to sculpt a sound very, very quickly and the capabilities of this is very even balanced. I think they've done an excellent job with this. If you've got any questions, do ask below in the comments, and thanks very much for watching us. Cheers now, bye.